Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel, Kalanati. Today is the third installment in my series of catch-up wrap-ups for everything I have read earlier in this year. Today it is time for the things I read in April. There are a lot of comics in this particular batch, so I'm hoping this will be a little bit shorter than the last one, which took forever to film. So let's get into it. So first of all, I finally continued with the Spy Family series in April. I read volumes 2 and 3, and my vague memories of these are that volume 2 introduces some more characters aside from just Twilight, Yor, and Anya, and those were established in the premise of everything in volume 1. I think volume 2 mentions like Yor's brother and some other side characters as well. I think. Maybe some people from the school that Anya is going to. Volume 3 seemed like it had some more character development, but I noticed that Yor just seems to be like sexualized. Like she's a very naive person, and the fact that she is sexualized, I cannot figure if that is part of the joke or not. I don't know. I think now that I've read most of the series that's out so far, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, but I think that I cannot always tell what is a cliche in this series and what is actually part of the joke. So some things would probably be funny if I felt like they were an actual parody, like more self-aware, but I don't always get that feeling from the way that this is written. Aside from that, it is really fun to read, and that's why I'm reading the entire series. Then I had a ton of fun with the Hilda series by Luke Pearson. This is a series of like middle grade comics. They feel like they're very young. They're very, very short, but I don't feel like they're little kid comics either. So Hilda is a series about a little girl named Hilda who lives in a world where like the supernatural folk, the fae creatures, the giants and the trolls and invisible people, they all exist here, and like everyone kind of knows this, but Hilda has a particular affinity for going off on adventures and meeting them and everything, and I love this. I love the world building in this series. Yes, I know there is a Netflix animated series based on this, and I may someday watch that, but it was just really cute. I felt like it was never talking down to the audience either. I was on a roll with something I was saying, and then my camera battery just died with no warning. What was I saying? I really enjoy the relationship between Hilda and her mother. They have a good relationship. It's very trusting, but it's also typical, like little kid wants to have fun, but her mother wants to protect her. And I could understand both sides of this. Hilda's mother is a single parent and is obviously protective of her daughter, but also understands that she is the adventurous type. She is capable. She has certainly survived a lot of adventures out on the hills and mountains by herself. So I just really enjoyed this. And I ended up really liking the artwork as well. It is a little bit more cartoony than what I usually like, but I just super warmed up to it. I think that Luke Pearson's style just, this is the world, and it was portrayed so well. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Hilda series. Next up is Honey and Pepper by AJ Demas. This is her latest novel set in her like ancient Mediterranean universe. It follows people from city-states that are obviously like Athens and Sparta and stuff like that. The Persians are in there as well. This particular queer romance is about two men who are actually both ex-slaves. They're both trying to kind of figure out their lives after being freed, and they meet. They have like a total meet cute. They fall for each other. They actually have a huge kind of embarrassing misunderstanding initially. I loved the story for bringing the characters back in a really like good way. Like they didn't obsess about how they had offended each other. They just ended up talking about it very quickly after the fact and getting past that. It was extremely low angst and fluffy, so cute, just like absolute pure sweet fluff, and I really enjoyed it. There's also a whole plot in there about basically a crime boss who might or might not be dead, and if he comes back, what's gonna happen to everybody. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I really like this world that Demas has created, and I have enjoyed all the stories I've read in it so far, and they are all predominantly queer romances. Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smythe. I read this because it is one of the graphic stories nominated for the Hugo Award this year, and I had heard this title before, and I knew it was like really hyped, but I didn't know what it was. So I guess that Lore Olympus is one of the extremely popular webtoon productions, which I don't know anything about, and it's now being printed in like, well, hardcover volumes. So I read volume 1 and it's like crack. It's a very sexy, colorful, sort of modern retelling of the story of Persephone, and I liked it a lot. I don't know where it's gonna go. I might not enjoy it in the future, but I'm gonna read volume 2, so there you go. I have not read much science fiction this year, surprisingly enough, probably because science fiction usually takes a lot more of my brain, and I have not had much brain to spare over the last 6 months, but I did read House of Suns by Alistair Reynolds, and the really impressive part of this book is the world building. It's like Reynolds said, I want to write a science fiction novel on a truly epic scale. The orders of magnitude here are astonishing. Things happen over millions and billions of years. People take like tens of thousands of years to travel between, you know, star systems and stuff. It's crazy. It was so cool. I loved the sheer imagination of this story. That was just, like I said, really impressive, the grand scale of this. It lacks somewhat in terms of plot and character development. The two main characters are clones from this particular family line that has been attacked. Most of them have been killed, and they're trying to find out who is trying to like commit genocide against their family. And it involves a large-scale mystery and stuff like that. There are also a lot of flashbacks to the original creator of the family line and the beginning of this particular era where multiple families created clones of themselves for reasons. And I didn't particularly love a lot of the flashbacks. I felt like some of the storyline from the flashbacks just was completely unnecessary. It wasn't tied into the current day events in the far future like I thought it was going to. So there were some points in the story where I went, this is a dead end. Like, this whole thing got a bunch of development, but then it didn't really seem to matter later on. So why was I supposed to care? There's also a relationship between the two main characters, and like I said, they are clones of the same woman. One of them is a male presenting clone, one is a female presenting clone. They are siblings, and they are in a romantic and sexual relationship, which is highly taboo in their family. Like, it's like this whole thing, like clones don't have relationships with each other, they're just siblings. So there's this sort of squicky aspect to their relationship, and I was never sure if I agreed with them breaking the taboo or not, because I didn't feel the relationship between them. They're supposed to care for each other very much, but I never felt the emotional connection. That being said, it was actually important to the story because these two characters always fundamentally trust each other in a way that they don't trust their other siblings, and that is important to what emotional content there is to the actual story. So then the book ends in a very strange spot, and because I was reading this on ebook, I literally thought that there was supposed to be another chapter that was missing from the book. That's not a great sign. When you get to the end of a book and you literally think that there's something wrong with the ebook file because it just ends. Okay then. So this was a really fun read. I quite liked it. But not the best from Reynolds in terms of like plot and characters, but yeah, like read it for just the ideas. They're so cool. On the flip side, something that was like super emotional, Knot of Shadows by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is the latest Penric and Desdemona novella. You guys know I love this series with all of my heart. It is a good day when Bujold blesses us with another Penric novella. This one is very sad. Basically, Pen and Des are investigating a death curse, which has involved the death of 2 different people. Basically, somebody used their death to kill somebody else, and they have a corpse with somebody else's soul inside of it, and they're trying to figure out how that happened. And the thing that makes this a very sad story is that it is about grief and despair, and it is a situation that you cannot bring justice to this. This is not a story about justice, about correcting a wrong. You cannot fix it. But it is, I think, a story about grace and mercy and trying to understand what can drive somebody else to just abject despair, to get to a point where they would kill somebody else in such a tragic way. It also involves like a subplot with the really tragic death of a small child. So like, it's a sad story, but I would actually put a bit of a content warning on it for the death of a child. And it's probably one of the more like emotionally affecting and melancholy type stories in this series. They're always good, but I often feel more uplifted at the end of one of these novellas, and this particular one I just felt very sad. So it was very good. It was so well written. I love the characters and they do the right things in the story, but it was about grief. So yeah. The last thing that I read in April that I have to talk about today is, wow, I'm just getting myself some like genre whiplash here. I read volume 2 of The Way of the Househusband by Kousuke Oono? I'm sorry, I cannot say his name. Kousuke Oono? So this is another humorous manga series. It's basically the same joke over and over again. An ex-member of the Yakuza has become a house husband after marrying his wife, and he approaches the most mundane things in his life, like cooking and cleaning and grocery shopping, with the energy of a violent gangster. And he actually, at the end of every like mini gag, comes across as kind of adorable in a scary way. When I read volume 1 of this, I thought it was kind of funny, but I also thought it would get old very fast, so I decided to not continue with the series. But then my library got like the entire series on overdrive, so I have been reading more of them, and I enjoyed volume 2 a lot more than volume 1. I'm hoping it's true what a lot of people say, that even though it's the same joke over and over again, it just never gets old. I also really like that, what's his face? I don't remember the main character's name. Yakuza guy's wife appears more and more frequently, and she's just as zany as he is, and I really like that. They're a good match. I want to know more about how they met and how he ended up leaving the Yakuza to marry her. Like, let's see that comedic gag. Anyway, really enjoyed this. I'm going to continue with it for at least a little while. And with that, we have reached the end of everything I read in April. I only have May and June and eventually July to get through. So thank you for sticking with me through these wrap-ups. I do appreciate it, and I'm so excited to be talking about books again. So thank you for being here. I'll be back to talk to you again soon about things I read in May. And until then, bye.